Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Javiary. So today we're going to talk about something that I used to think was not controversial. This is Einstein for everybody new to the channel, but I've come across this a ton lately, and I guess it is a little controversial, so let's talk about it today. And what we're going to talk about is caging requirements for finches. Okay, so caging requirements for finches, and then I guess we'll also cover passerines, some related species, or species that are commonly kept. So when it comes to finches, one of my personal biggest frustrations is you see them for sale and you see people offering tiny cages. And what I mean by tiny cages is 18-inch, or I guess that would be about, and I'll do the math for all the centimeters below, but 18-inch by 1 foot deep by 18-inch tall cage. And that's not enough, it's just not enough room for a finch. It's not enough room for a pair of finches. It's definitely not enough room for a bunch of finches in a breeding situation. So I'm going to show you some different examples I have right now. A bunch of different, I have birds in holding, birds in quarantine, and birds in breeding situations. So I thought today would be a good way, now would be a good time to sort of show you examples of that. And we can sort of talk through why I feel the way I do, the science behind why I feel the way I do, and hopefully help guide, especially new to finch people, in the right direction with regards to caging. So this isn't meant to offend, this isn't meant to be controversial. This is just meant to be educational and informative. And if you disagree, pop in the comments, disagree there. Got loud cockatiels doing stuff behind me. Let's have a healthy, respectful debate. If you got questions, shoot me a DM. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Those are things that help my channel, and that helps me to help y'all. So let's talk about caging. So I know what you're thinking. Jay, you've got finches and 2 parakeets in tiny cages right now. And I'll start with this. Yes, I do, and that's why I'm starting with these. So right now, we can use this bork as a great example. I've got this bork in a quarantine cage. So I'm treating scat, Ronnie vet, some other medicines, and I'm also monitoring the bird's droppings. So I've got masking paper here, and those droppings look pretty normal and good for a budgie or any kind of grass heat. And I also want to highlight a few things. First of all, these cages are for quarantine only. I don't breed in them. I don't keep birds in them long term. So I'll use these cages for approximately 3 weeks. That's my normal quarantine period, or just a little bit longer if I think they need it. Once that quarantine period is over, birds go out of here and either into the big aviary or into a larger cage. And then the other thing I want to highlight is the way the perches are set up on this cage. So if you see, I've got a perch here going the long way and a perch here going the long way. So even though this is a relatively short cage, to perch, the birds have to fly back and forth. So I'm giving them the longest possible cage size, even in this holding cage environment. And that's something I actually replicate in all my cages. So this is call it my parrot flight. And it is 8 feet long, but I still, if you can see, those birds are on it there. I have a perch all the way at the end there. And on this side where that canary is, I have a perch all the way at the end. And I do have perches in between, but I'm set up that as much as possible, the birds get long longitudinal flight. All right, so this cage, I have about 10 birds, and I am breeding in here, but even this cage, I would say for a pair of cockatiels, a pair of budgies, a pair of canaries, a pair of doves, and a pair of weavers is borderline in size. So, and it's 8 feet long, 3 feet deep, and 5 feet tall. And it's still almost too small, and I won't put more birds in here ever. And here we have my smallest holding or hospital cages. So they are 30 inches long. You can see there's a heat lamp up there for when I use them as a hospital cage. Right now, this is just a holding cage. These are some birds that I've pulled out of the big aviary, and they are going, pretty soon they're going to be shipped. So in the meantime, I've just got them here, and I've got a pretty similar perch setup. I've got one there, and then I've got one in the middle. So again, long flight. This is sold as a breeding cage, and I would potentially consider short term, like 1 to 2 clutches, breeding a pair in here, but it's just not big enough for them to maintain a healthy lifestyle long term, especially once you add in, a clutch 5-6 babies. So again, this is not a cage I would consider using long term for the life of a finch. Now, up here I have some more holding cages and some actual permanent cages. So these cages, they're all a little different, but roughly they are 4 feet long, they are 3 feet tall, and they are 2 feet wide. And I'll try to open it and hopefully nobody will fly out on me, but want to again highlight that I have perches arranged so the birds can fly the long way. Now this is a holding cage. These are all babies I've produced already this year, and they'll be headed out on order soon, and same with the cage next to it. So in a cage this big, which is floor space wise is 4 feet by 2 feet, so you're at a total of 8 square feet there. I would only consider keeping at the most 2 pairs in here for breeding, or potentially 3 pairs if you weren't breeding. So the general rule of thumb is 1 square yard or 1 square meter per pair. So here I'm just shy of 2 square yards, 2 square meters. So, 6 birds if you really had to, but certainly no more than 2 pairs if you were breeding. Same goes here, and then this is where I have my borks. So they have, again, 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, 4 feet and 3 feet tall, and I keep only 1 pair in here. So out here in the big aviary, and I recognize that not everyone can build an aviary, and I need to do another video on cage building, but if you want to keep as many birds as I have out here, which is about 60, then you need the size to do that. So this cage is 15 feet long, 5 feet wide, 7 feet tall out here in the main section, and you'll notice I have perches all the way at the end there and all the way right here. You can also hear, I want you to hear baby Gouldians in both of these nests asking for food. And then this cage is also connected in here, and this area is 6 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 4 feet tall, and there's a perch all the way back at the end. So I'm trying to maximize flying length and minimize issues. I've also done some other things in here to help the birds cohabitate. So I've got lots of different feeders, and I've got privacy perches. So little blocks, and these I made myself with this pre-made shelving box from a arts and crafts store, or you can buy privacy perches like this. And what this allows is for 1 or 2 birds, and you can see where they sit at night. This allows for only 1 or 2 birds to sit up here and not be disturbed by other birds. So to sort of explain why this matters, because I'm not necessarily approaching this from the I love birds and they're part of the family and they should be treated like people aspect. If that's how you feel, that's totally fine, and I understand that and I love that. I'm more talking about what I've seen from almost 25 years of experience and the results that I get from breeding and long-term success, health of my birds. If you keep finches in tiny enclosures, they're going to be cramped, which leads to fighting. I see all the time people say, oh, my finches are fighting. You would fight too if you and your brothers and sisters and your mom and your dad all had to live in one tiny little apartment. So think of it, you know, a long road trip in your car or something like that. What do kids do? They bump heads, right? So for me, if you want to see your birds thrive mentally, which is what we're talking about there, and also physically from a not being obese, being able to exercise standpoint, they really need at least 3 feet. And you may be thinking, well, I don't have the room for that, or I can't afford a cage like that. I have very few cages here that I purchased. I have a couple that I purchased for expedience, but all my big cages I built. And unless you're going to keep somebody like Einstein, who's capable of tearing through the small mesh, you can very cost effectively and very easily, and I've got videos below on how I've done it, build your own. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. But this is just kind of my appeal to the community that let's raise the standard for keeping finches, because for the long-term health of the hobby, long-term health of your own birds, you are better off with a slightly bigger cage that may not even cost more money, as opposed to trying to make it work with what you've got now. If you already have these big cages, I love it. I want to hear about that too. If what I'm saying jives with you, I want to hear about that. But give me a shout, reach out. I'd love to hear from y'all. And again, this is not meant to be any kind of indictment or accusation. If you're new to the hobby, I don't want you to think you're not welcome here. I love it. I want more people to own birds. I'm just trying to make sure that everyone is doing it the right way. So thanks, Flock, for following along, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Birds in the sky keeping me down. They won't let me inside of their town. How I wish I could be one of them. How I wish I could be one of them.